I'm Jim Small, editor of Arizona News Service, and I'll serve as the moderator for this forum. All of the candidates who are participating in this event have been provided the questions they will be asked in advance. However, I may ask follow-up questions the candidates have not been provided in order to get a better understanding of where they stand on the issues. The candidates will have 90 seconds to answer each of the questions asked. Now, let's get started. Legislative District 28 is in Maricopa County and covers much of the north central and Arcadia areas of Phoenix, as well as Paradise Valley and parts of Scottsdale. The two Senate candidates for District 28 are both currently representing the district in the House of Representatives. Republican Kate Brophy McGee and Democratic candidate Eric Meyer. Welcome to you both. So we'll go ahead and get started. Kate, we'll give you the first question. When the school year started this year, there were more than 2,000 classrooms without a permanent qualified teacher. The Learning Policy Institute recently named Arizona as the least attractive state for hiring teachers, largely due to working conditions and compensation. What policies do you support to address this issue and ensure that public schools are able to hire, retain, and support their teachers?
Well, thank you for that question. I served on a school board for almost 10 years, and my first recommendation is to value teachers as the professionals that they are. We need to address compensation and working conditions as part of that value. We need to establish that as a policy statewide and mold our thinking around it. Good teachers, great teachers are leaving, and they are not being replaced by great teachers. And the way that we have to approach it is through a funding approach, working conditions approach. We have to clear the barriers, and I think we'll address it farther in. We have to clear the barriers in terms of funding and make sure that they have the resources to teach students and hold them accountable. And that includes technology, classroom supports, textbooks, things that they don't have in the classrooms now, and make sure that we can then offer as competitive a package to teachers as Nevada and California and some of the other states that are taking our good teachers.
Eric?
Thanks. Well, this isn't a new problem. Last year we started short 1,000 teachers. 25% of the teachers that are now working in our school are eligible for retirement in the next 3 years. In our budget that we offered up, but didn't make it through the process, we had a plan to address the teacher shortage, both through mentoring and through retention bonuses. Our salaries are much lower than all the surrounding states, so the only way we can increase teacher retention here is by increasing investment in education. We now have, since 2008, made some of the largest cuts to public education in the history of the state. We're spending less than $1,000 now, adjusted for inflation, than we were than we are now. So, we have put our teachers at a disadvantage. They're making an economic choice to leave the state. So we need to focus on funding education. Our caucus and I continue to offer up solutions within the budget structure as it exists to increase funding to our schools, but the governor and my Republican colleagues have failed to make those investments. We had a $1 billion surplus this year. We could have used some of those dollars to recruit and retain teachers, and we just didn't do it.
Okay. Governor Ducey has said that Proposition 123 was the first step in addressing shortfalls in the K-12 system. What are your ideas for the next steps, and what role would you play in building and sustaining the K-12 system?
So, Prop 123 was a solution to the inflation funding lawsuit that existed because the legislature didn't abide by the will of the people and fund our schools appropriately for inflation. So it did move us forward. It only actually was settled at 72% of what was supposed to be delivered to our classrooms. In this last year's budget, a second step could have been using some of that surplus I just talked about for funding our schools. I offered up an amendment for an additional $116 million to go to our schools. It failed, unfortunately, and Kate didn't support that amendment. And now moving forward, we have a bigger challenge because of some of the decisions we've made in the budget. So we have to look at making education a #1 priority, like I have for the 8 years that I've served in the House and for the 8 years I served on the Scottsdale School Board. So Every time I do a budget with my caucus, we look at how we can find those dollars to invest in education. That's our number one priority. And we can't continue to give special interest tax cuts, invest in private prisons, and all the other things we do if we don't put education first.
All right. Kate, what are next steps after Prop 123?
Well, I am so grateful to be having this conversation, because if Prop 123 had not passed, then we would still be mired in a lawsuit that had gone on for over 5 years. We'd be paying attorneys and not putting money into the classrooms. It's important to point out that my opponent opposed Prop 123, did not support it, did not vote for it. Having established 123 as the platform, we must go forward, and the very first thing I want to do is to renegotiate Prop 301. The sales tax increase. We have to continue, as Prop 123 did, to put sustainable, predictable funding into our schools. That's the first thing. Then the second thing is to address the teacher shortage immediately with resources and working conditions. And the third thing is to address capital needs for schools. I served on the school facilities board for almost 6 years, and we put a lot of money into deficiencies correction. It is much, much better if we address that up front. And with our deficits, we've not been able to do that. It's also important to note that despite the proclaimed billion-dollar budget surplus, we have a $50 million structural shortfall as of today.
Yeah. Now, tell me one thing, Kate, that the state should do to ensure that public schools are held accountable.
I think public schools, Arizona schools, are very much held accountable. We have put in some remarkable reforms over the past couple of years. What needs to stop happening is that we keep changing direction. We need to go with the reforms that we put in place, and I commend our teachers and our educators, our administrators, for putting those reforms into place under very difficult circumstances. But we need to go forward with those reforms and let them play out, and we need to figure out how to fund them. The second thing, we must adopt a policy, a law that says we do not do policy and formula changes in the middle of the night with no public discussion or debates. There's much better ways to do things when it comes to education.
Okay. Eric.
We have put accountability measures in place. So we rate our teachers, we rate our principals, we give letter grades to our schools and to our districts. What we don't do is fund our schools. And in particular, those DNF schools and our charter schools that are underperforming, we need to invest in those schools and put quality teachers in the classroom and principals on those campuses. And until we do that, the accountability measures don't mean much because we haven't invested in our schools. Back to Prop 123, Kate knows that because we've done this before, I supported the increases in funding. What I didn't support was the rate on the state trust lands and the caps and triggers that were in that. And we were on a stage together at Saguaro High School where I was at a rally supporting Prop 123 after it passed the legislature because that was the only option we had. So I'm very supportive of funding our schools. The teachers were the biggest proponents of Prop 123. They've endorsed me in this election cycle. So I think it's a little disingenuous to say that I don't support additional funding for our schools.
Okay. Well, let's talk about additional funding for schools. How would you propose paying for it?
Well, there's a number of ways. One, we had money in the budget that we could have used to do that. Two, if you look at the tax cuts that we've given over the past 8 years, we've given about $900 million in tax cuts. Those tax cuts were mostly to special interest entities, corporations, and there's no evidence that they've created a single job in the state. If we use those dollars to hire teachers, I could show you where those jobs were. So we should look at suspending those until we actually fund our education system. Restore full-day kindergarten, reduce class sizes, get technology in the classroom, and a whole bunch of other things. Two, we give out corporate STO tax credits that are multiplying at about 20% a year, and we shouldn't be doing that. We don't even fund our own inflation for our public schools, but for the corporate tax credits, we're doing it at 20% a year. Just those two things I mentioned alone, the suspension of tax cuts and the corporate tax credits, would amount to about $450 million in revenue. We had money in the general fund. If we put that $116 million in, that would have been $550 million. And then I think moving forward, we have to go to the voters and restore Prop 301, and what that will look like and whether there'll be a facilities component in that remains to be seen. But I think we need to, at least I will be advocating for those types of things. And then long term, we need to find a defined revenue stream that's dedicated to education. So, and I know there are some proposals on the table around energy that we sell out of state and other things. So.
Okay.
I'll stop going. Go ahead.
Okay. How would you propose paying for additional funding for schools?
Well, the first conversation that needs to happen, it has to do with Prop 123 in place. We must renew Prop 301. It's interesting to note that the support for Prop 123 occurred after a no vote. Going forward, I think you have to put every idea that is out there, and there are a lot of those ideas, out on the table, and you have to have that discussion. It's time to go big. It's time to go bold. You need to look at everything, and there are a lot of solutions like the ABEX solution that's out there, and get the people in the room that need to have the conversation with a stable or relatively stable budget, with still a small structural budget deficit. We can look at having those conversations. And I would argue that I am by far the best person to do that in the LD 28 Senate race. And the reason that I say that is because I have a track record and a history of putting together coalitions, partisan and bipartisan, to solve problems, to solve very complex problems. And it's been my honor to do that on some other big issues that the state has faced. This is the next big conversation to have. With the resolution of the lawsuit and the passage of Prop 123, which I worked very hard to make happen, we're in a position to finally have those conversations. And I would really be honored if I could be part of them.
Okay. I think both of you guys have mentioned Prop 301 a couple times. It sounds like both of you support renewing the ballot measure when it expires in 2021. It obviously brings in about $550 million a year into the K-12 system. Would there be any changes for it that you would see going forward? How would you, just basically a renewal of it, or would you like to see it changed and adapted for the next 20 years?
I think it's part of an overall conversation on education and education funding that needs to take place. At a bare minimum, it needs to be renewed. But I have heard my colleagues talk about enhancing Prop 301 revenues, and we've had the experience of Prop 301 for a period of time. Maybe there's some fine-tuning or some adjustments that we can make, but we absolutely need to go forward. Prop 123 won't work unless you renew Prop 301.
Okay. Eric.
Well, I think that we definitely need to figure out how to invest more in our schools. Prop 301 is going to be renewed or expire in 2020, and we'll lose that 0.6% sales tax. Prop 123 was a first step. I'm hoping there's additional steps, but with Prop 301, I think we'll have to see what the landscape looks at that point. If we continue to cut funding like we have under the Ducey administration, we'll be desperate for those monies. 74% of the voters right now are looking for increased funding for our public schools. It doesn't matter whether they're Republicans or Democrats or independents. So I'm hopeful that I'll be down there to have those discussions with my caucus and with the Republican caucus, just like I have over the past 8 years that I've been down there. I'm fearful that if it doesn't pass, our schools will be in even more dire straits, and it's a must-pass resolution.
Tell me one thing that you would do to increase early education options for all Arizona children, particularly those that come from low-income families.
Well, we passed first things first. We've prevented
The voters did.
The voters did. That's correct. Thank you. The voters passed first things first. We've tried to raid that multiple times. I've opposed those raids on first things first because that's where we are getting some early childhood education needs met. I guess it was 12 years ago now, or even longer ago, worked on getting the funding for full-day kindergarten, just as a parent advocate down at the Capitol. We should restore full-day kindergarten. We cut that, and we have the opportunity to restore that if we elect the right people. And then we have the fourth highest rate of childhood poverty in the state. There are kids that definitely need help that come into our system unprepared for kindergarten. So programs that while I was on the school board in Scottsdale that we had for early childhood education could be replicated around the state.
Okay. Kate.
The research shows that the earlier a child is exposed to enriched experiences, the more quickly and the better you can enhance the trajectory of their educational path. So I would like to see a partnership with First Things First. They just came through an audit with flying colors. We have a tendency at the legislature, a very strong tendency, to shoot at them, and that's wrong. We should not do that. We need to sit down. We need to make a partnership, come to a partnership and a conversation and agreement about how we can work together. And this is just one solution. There are lots of things that we need to do, but we can work together to build early quality child care situations where children are exposed to enrichments, and we set those building blocks early, even before they hit preschool and kindergarten, and then go on into quality preschool programs and quality kindergarten programs. I'm very interested in having that discussion with the work that I do in so many in the fields with high-need families. This is a critical part of those children's education, but I would argue it's a critical part of every child's education.
All right, I've got one lightning round question, so just a quick yes or no, thumbs up or thumbs down here. The corporate private school tax credits automatically increase by 20% every year. The cap does on that, regardless of student growth or any other factors. Is that good public policy or bad public policy?
Bad public policy.
Bad public policy.
All right. Well, I think that's about all the time we have today, so thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.